This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
His columns may inspire you, they may make you laugh, or they may make you mad. He's a Boston boy with Florida sand in his shoes. Mark OBrien, Pensacola News Journal columnist, joins us for this edition of Conversations. I'm Jeff Weeks. Thank you so very much for spending some time with us. Mark OBrien, welcome to our show.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. I'm glad you had me. I appreciate it.
Nice to have you on television, not just seeing you in a small picture in the
That's
newspaper.
true. That's right. I'm really big high def now. It's really scary, huh?
Let's talk a little bit about, for folks who've read you for many years, they may wonder, where did you come from? How did you get in the business? You're from Boston. What brought you to Pensacola?
Well, two things. I've always wanted to be a newspaper man, and I always wanted to live in the South. And we all know people who never got to live one of their dreams. So I'm a very fortunate guy. I got to live both of my dreams. And I always wanted to be in the newspaper business. I finally got into it when I was in my 20s. And anyway, eventually I was working for the Associated Press in Atlanta, and I wanted to live someplace smaller, warmer, and on the water. Sent out a bunch of resumes, and the News Journal was the first one to send me a plane ticket down to check the place out, and come for an interview and all that. It was 1978, Pensacola Regional Airport, and you had to walk in. I don't know if you remember the airport back then. There wasn't much more than a dirt trail out there that you landed on. You walked in, and half a mile or so from the runway. Then you get to the airport, and a rental car. This is no lie. It was a yellow Pinto with a CB radio. I said, I got to live here, man. This is my kind of town. This is the South. Because Atlanta was just sort of a bunch of suburbs. And I said, this is cool, man. I love this place. And so the News Journal was pretty loose in those days. And they basically took me to Trader John's, and we drank and talked. And they said, well, you want a job? I said, yeah, okay, you're hired. So that was it. And that was 1978. And 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, I moved down here. My kids have been born and raised here. It's a great town. And anyhow, that's how I came here. I was just looking for a place to live, and I had moved around the newspaper business, like radio business, TV business. Oftentimes you got to move the first 2 or 3 times to get up the ladder. And I sort of said, I'm coming to Pensacola. I'm going to make a go of it. I'm going to stay here, and this is going to be my home. And I've never really thought about leaving. It's just always been home to me. I love the place. I mean, as much as I complain about it, it's great. It is, so can't imagine any place else.
What was it about the newspaper business that made you want to be in it?
Well, I remember I was in about the 8th grade. I remember I thought I was going to write books. And then I read this thing on how to careers, and it said, instead of writing books, maybe you want to consider working for a newspaper, because newspaper people, you get to write all the time, but you get paid every week. And whereas you write a book, you might not get paid every 2 or 3 years, Plus, writing books is very lonely. And so, because it's just you and the typewriter or the computer. So I got into newspapers, and it's been fantastic, because I've been everywhere from the governor's mansion to death row. You get to go pretty much any place you want. You get to ask questions of everybody, and it's just fantastic freedom.
Now, you started out as a reporter, I assume.
Right. I started as a reporter, yes, up in Vermont, New Hampshire, Atlanta, and then here. Then I was city editor. I was in management for 1 year, the most miserable, unhappy year of my life, where I had people I had to answer to me, and I had to watch over them and all that. And I'm not much for being cooped up in an office, but I was city editor for a year. And anyway, I just hated that. And so then eventually I got to be a columnist, which was what my always dream had been, because one of the things about growing up in Boston was they had fantastic sports columnists. Wow. I mean, they really were great writers, and they still have a lot of good ones up there. So anyway, that's what I wanted to be, as a columnist.
How did you make that transition from reporting to columnist?
Well, basically, there's a couple different kinds of columnists. Some guys that just sit there and opine about this, that, and the other thing. And then the other columnists are really reporters as much as anything, when they throw in their opinion or a viewpoint or a perspective or what have you. And I'm more of the reporter kind of columnist. I like to go to meetings, believe it or not. I mean, I was at county commission meeting this morning. I'm going to go to one this evening. I'm just a wild and crazy guy. Got to have my government fixed. But I like that sort of stuff, and I like to see what people are thinking and talk with them and stuff like that. So anyhow, it's just sort of writing about people, and it really transitioned pretty good. I mean, the neat thing about being a columnist is you get to pick and choose what you write about. As opposed to a reporter, it's more assigned kind of stuff.
And I guess, too, you get, as a columnist, it's okay to be opinionated.
Right, yeah. In fact, you better be opinionated, because, I mean, there's some columnists that don't want to offend anybody, and I'm not trying to offend people, but I am trying to make them think, and sometimes in the process I offend them. Like my wife picks up the paper in the morning, looks at my column and say, well, what friends did you cost us today? You know, it's like, who did you tick off, Mark? But I don't intentionally go out of my way to offend people, but I mean, sometimes you do when you're trying to push a point of view, and you got to get people to think. That's the thing, the purpose of being a columnist, I think. Otherwise, what are you there for?
You get a lot of mail?
Yes, and it's, you know, it's fantastic. I was a columnist for the News Journal in the 80s, and I left in 89, and I went into public relations, and then I came back in 99. And the huge improvement or change to me is, you know, back in the 80s, it was all snail mail. And a lot of times people say, oh, I'm going to write that guy a letter, but they didn't. Well, now it's email.
Yeah.
Man, you get instant response, good or bad. But that's what I like is feedback, because I'm at a point in life where I realize, you know, Mark, you're not always right. You know, sometimes somebody else has a better idea or a different way of looking at things. So I really appreciate it. Yeah, and I get a lot of mail. People, you know, send in stuff all the time, and I appreciate that a lot. It's fantastic to get that feedback, because you know people are reading it. Whereas in the old days, you write it, and well, maybe a week later you get 1 or 2 letters in the mail. So
is there a particular topic that you've addressed or written about that's generated more mail than usual? Hot buttons, in other words.
Oh, geez, yeah, I guess, you know, you get on the Maritime Park, that's one. I don't usually write about religion or race because they're easy topics to write about, and they'll generate a lot of mail, but they're not going to change anybody's opinion for the most part. It just reinforces the one side or the other. So I just try to write about more topical stuff. I wrote one column one time about Walmart, and how Pensacola was a lot like Walmart in that we were offering things at the cheapest rate, but we weren't necessarily improving. Now, this was years ago, but anyway, Walmart got so mad they banned the newspaper from the Walmart, which is a lot because we sell several thousand news journals a day at the Walmart. So that wasn't good, but the newspaper stood behind me, and eventually Walmart relented, and we started selling the paper again in the Walmart, which was great that we did that. But that was one, I guess. It's funny. I mean, some topics will really hit a button and get a lot of response, and then others will sort of go over like a lead balloon, and then maybe 6 months later somebody will say, hey, you know, you wrote that column about such as, and I'll have forgotten about it, but it sticks with them. So, and you just have a wide variety of opinions.
How do you decide what you want to write about? Is that a hard thing to do on a daily basis, or what do you do 4 times a week?
4 times a week, and I blog 2 to 4 times a day as well now, which is another nice development because you can get stuff off your chest right away, and something that, you know, maybe not worth a whole column, but it's worth 2 or 3 paragraphs on the blog, and people can read it and move on from there. I get bop around town a lot. I try to talk to a lot of people, go to meetings, see what's going on in the world. I always know that at the end of the week, 4 things will happen that I can write about. I just don't know when they're going to happen. They don't always happen, you know, Monday at 9, Tuesday at 10, and Wednesday at 11. So some weeks I'm done with that thing at 9 o'clock Friday morning. And other weeks I'm in there Saturday afternoon writing desperately to get it done. But I enjoy the heck out of it. But I just try to pick on what people are talking about. And a lot of times the media will be on one issue and they'll just all go in one direction. You know, say there's some sensational murder or something like that. Well, my feeling then is, okay, everybody else is covering it. I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to go cover something totally different. And then other times there might be some big news event that I think I have something specific to say. One of the blessings or curses of having been here for 30-something years is a lot of times I can point out, hey, you know, this actually happened 20-something years ago, and we're just basically repeating it. You know, the names have been changed, but we're repeating ourselves, or we're taking a big step forward from the way we used to be, or what have you. So I just sort of bop around and pick and choose. And one of the things that the News Journal likes is I write a lot of columns that are just actually collections of 3 or 4 or 5 different items, really short hits, because, you know, people's attention span is shrinking all the time. And a lot of times you can sum up something in 2 or 3 paragraphs. I mean, you can make it into a whole column, but a lot of times you can get it down to 2 or 3, 4 paragraphs, and that's what I try to do and bring it on home to people.
How has the new technology changed your business? You're talking about blogging. Has it made it? Has it watered things down because anybody can blog?
Well, yes and no. Yeah, anybody can blog, but it's not as easy as it looks, folks. so you know, for example, the city council, all the city council members started blogging. Not all of them, but Sam Hall, Megan Pratt, Larry Johnson, Myron DeWeese, Diane Mack. We all got blogs. I said, well, this is really refreshing. New, the younger people, you know, they're going to blog and all that stuff. Well, you go look, man, they're there for 2, 3, 4 weeks. They don't do a thing. You know, Diane Mack, she's the exception. She puts out stuff 2, 3 times a week. Now, she's a advertising / public relations person. She's very comfortable writing and all that. But it's not as easy as it looks. But I enjoy the heck out of it because there is that more give and take. There are more people out there. And the thing about being online is your audience is, you know, somebody in Seattle might email in and say, hey, we had a similar thing in Seattle or whatever. And so you get a much bigger audience. The drawback is that audience isn't paying for the paper. Right. So people are getting all these free eyeballs out there. So that's caused a lot of consternation in the news media because they thought when we went online that advertising would follow and that this would create a lot of money. And then A, the recession happened, but B, it's been hard to figure out a way to get advertising online that advertisers like because, like I say you're Dillard's and somebody you're Dillard's in Pensacola and your ad is running on TV or whatever. Well, you don't care if somebody in Seattle's reading it because they're not going to buy from you. So it's been tougher that way. But I think they're working on a lot of different ways to even proposals, ways to get people to pay for online subscriptions and stuff like that. So it's changed a lot, but from the financial point of view, I think it's been very rough. From a reporter's point of view or a columnist's point of view, it's been a fantastic step forward because, like I said, I got lots more people reading me. They may agree or disagree, but I'm getting a lot more feedback. And you can just touch on tons more topics, and you can be much quicker with stuff. Like I say, you know, something happens, say something happens on Friday. Well, my next column's not till Sunday. Well, I can write about it on Friday, put it on my blog, and then so people then can talk about it or read it, and I get feedback whether A, I'm correct or not, or maybe look in another different direction. And then on Sunday, I can amplify on it in a column.
Speaking of the financial stuff, do you think the newspaper industry has given too much for free? Is it going to be difficult for now to come back and say, okay, pay me for this content?
Well, that's what they keep saying now. They keep saying that people won't pay to get this content that they've been getting for free. But I remember when the newspaper, when you used to go in the gas station and they'd pump your gas and wash your windshield and give you a free map. Well, that doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
We eventually got over it. We all pump our gas like goofballs and, you know, move on. And we don't save any money. Remember, they sold it to us as, well, pump your own gas and you save 10 cents a gallon. Well, no, that's over. So I think that people will eventually pay. Maybe they'll be begrudging about it, and which I can understand. I would probably feel the same way. But I think that they're going to pay because they've gotten hooked on all this extra information that they didn't have. I mean, if you're a news junkie, for example, and you're used to remember the days when you had to wait until Monday or Tuesday for the Sunday New York Times to come to town in the mail. Well, now you're online at 1 o'clock on Sunday morning. You can read the Sunday New York Times for free here. So,
right.
So I think that they will get more. People will resent it and fight it. But I think that people will go along with it. However, the experts who are drawing up the plans keep saying no, people won't do it. So they're thinking of, okay, you give them the paper for free, but you get them to pay for some added service or added attraction. So
some kind of premium content.
Yeah, right.
And well, I know that a lot of newspapers are moving more towards putting video online.
Right.
Now, is that something that they think is going to stick? Or?
Well, we've gotten quite a bit of video at pnj.com. We got a couple of young people that are really pretty good at it, and it's got an attraction. It takes up a huge chunk of bandwidth, so that's not that technically that's a problem that you got to address. But there's quite a bit of interest in it.
Do you think from a journalism standpoint, not from a columnist standpoint, but from a journalism standpoint, has the new technology hurt the industry? And I guess what I mean by that is allowing a lot of folks who ordinarily would not have been hired by the New York Times or by the Washington Post, but allowing them to get on and report and be very kind of opinionated about stuff, or slanted, shall I say.
Well, there's a big market in opinion stuff out there, whether it's the blogs, talk radio, stuff like that. And guys like Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, they'll tell you they're entertainers. That's their thing. That's their shtick. And they have developed huge political followings. But they're not journalists per se, any more than Jon Stewart is on the other side. Right. They're entertainers who have a great way of presenting their side of things. So you have a lot of other people out there who want to be like that, or who think that, well, they can just spout opinion, and that's their right to have an opinion, but to me, you ought to have some facts to back it up. I think that over time, the people who present facts are going to do better than the ones who just spout opinion and you know, do it in a flashy way. But yeah, there's a whole lot more people out there. There's a lot more opportunity now than there ever used to be too. And the news media, the conventional mainstream media, they're struggling with that because, you know, that's where the money seems to be right now. But I kind of think that over time it will pass. But you know, the other thing I got to tell you, I thought I remember hearing Rush Limbaugh in the early '90s and saying, hey, this guy is really great, and B, he's not going to last 5 years. And here he is 20-something years later, he's bigger and stronger than ever. So what do I know?
What's your favorite thing to write about? Is it politics?
I like politics a lot. I like to write about people. I like pretty much everything. I like sports, crime, pretty much whatever's going on. I like somebody who can tell a good story. If somebody tells me a good story, that makes my life so easy because then I just write it down. And those are the people that are really I look for. We've had a lot of turmoil in the last few years in government, and so that was a lot of fun. I mean, what's good for citizens isn't good for columnists, and what's good for columnists isn't good for citizens. I remember the days, one time I went to a county commission meeting when Willie Jr. and W.D. Childers and Terry Smith were holding forth, and I literally, Jeff, I got 4 columns out of one meeting. That's how crazy they were. I mean, they were just doing all kinds of stuff, you know, and it's like, whoa, baby. So I like to what's going on, what's on people's minds, and I like to try to tell them something that they didn't know, or encourage them to look at something a different way. So just try to mix it up. The other thing I found is I don't want to write about politics every day, because now there are people out there who want to read politics every day, but other people don't. And so you need to have a mixture of things. And I personally am interested in a lot of different stuff. So, I mean, like I say, I might write politics today. Tomorrow I might write a story about a person who did something, you know, a positive story, a negative story, whatever. And then another day might be a collection of odds and ends. And I try to mix them up and have a lot of variety, because this is a community newspaper, and you got to reach as many people as you can. Whereas, say you're a George Will, well, you can write politics all the time, and he's got far more expertise about it than I do. Or Leonard Pitts, for example. Those guys, they can write about certain things, and they tend to write about the same things, but they have great expertise in those matters. Whereas me, I'm sort of a general assignment kind of guy, jack of all trades.
Having covered Northwest Florida for so many years, having been there, who's the most colorful political figure that or character that you've
Well,
covered?
I guess W.D. Childers would probably be definitely one of them. He was, I mean, for a little guy, he was larger than life. He really had a lot of impact. And he had a lot of positive impact on this community for a long time, and a lot of negative too towards the end. Fred Levin's another guy who ran with them. There's just a ton of them. Geez, there's so many people that are colorful, and some of them, they're not colorful in public, but then if you get to know them, they'll let their guard down in a talk, but they don't want it revealed in public, because to me, the secret of getting elected and succeeding here is don't be too colorful, because people don't like it too flashy. You know, they're a little independence, but they don't want somebody who's, you know, say a Vanette Webb or a Hal Mason. Well, they're very colorful, interesting people, but after a while, they were too colorful and too flashy, and so the public gets leery of that. So the successful ones don't reveal a whole lot in public.
Have politicians changed over the years, just the way they behave as you've covered them?
I don't know. I still remember Willie Jr. and gosh, 30 years ago, it was an Equal Rights Amendment, and Willie was running around telling people, oh, vote against the Equal Rights Amendment. They'll be having, the girls and the boys will have to share the same bathroom. And then he'd go laughing out the door, because he knew it was a lie, you know what I mean, just like death panels or whatever else. You know, it's just something that they throw out there. Some of them were maybe a little bit more likable. I mean, you had a guy like Bobo Jones, who was a wheeler-dealer politician in Pensacola for many years, and Bobo never said anything. He never stated a fact, but he would cause all kinds of trouble. Like he'd say, well, Jeff, did you hear that so-and-so stole X number of dollars from so-and-so? Well, he didn't tell you that, did he? He just asked you, did you hear it? You know, so then you had to go find out, but that was it. But so there's a lot of people, and there's people now that do it too, to some degree. But I think one of the things that's refreshing to me is this generational change. Everybody talks about change and new leadership and all that stuff, and my pet peeve is leadership. what is leadership? Everybody said, well, we need new leadership. Well, there's good leadership and there's bad leadership. But I think we've got some new people in office, and we will find out in the next few years whether it's good or bad. But I mean, you got a new sheriff, you got 3 or 4 new council members, a couple new commissioners, you got new administrator, a new city manager, all that stuff. So in the school system, you got a new superintendent, a couple new board members. So we have a chance to find out if these things are going to be good or bad. But anyway, it's a change, and it's an openness, I think, to doing things differently.
As we move on to state and national politics, what do you make of what's going on in the state right now? Charlie Crist running for Senate.
Well, you know, I think Charlie Crist is in more trouble than he realizes. I think there's gosh bless him, he's like the Tom Banjan of state politics. He is all things to all people. But you know, yesterday there's a thing. They said, well, what do you think about health care for the uninsured? Oh, we don't need it. Well, of course, Charlie gets free health care. He's a governor. You know, he and 26,000 state employees, they get it, part of their job. So it's kind of like, I think that's going to hurt him a little bit. And of course, most of the uninsured people aren't Republicans, and they're not going to be voting in the Republican primary. But I think he's got problems. I think that guy Rubio is a really hard working fellow. Let's get Rubio, just running against him now. A few years ago, who was he, the president of the Senate?
I believe so.
Yeah,
Marco Rubio.
Marco Rubio. Okay, true story. It's a Labor Day weekend, Friday night, 6:30. My phone rings. Marco Rubio wanting to call Mark O'Brien. Now, okay, now, this doesn't happen in the real world. Okay, Marco Rubio, he wants something, and as it happened, he wanted to stick a knife in Mike Whitehead, the county commissioner. He'd been feuding with them. But you think, now how many guys on the start of a 3-day weekend, especially politicians, are saying, okay, I'm going to have a start on my martinis or my gin and tonics, and how many say, I'm going to call that newspaper guy over in Pensacola and track him down and get something on. And so Rubio's a hard worker in that regard. And I'm not saying he called me because I'm important, but it was like he wanted something, and that's another example of a politician who works hard.
On the national scene, what do you think of Obama?
I like him. I think it's been refreshing to see how he's done. I mean, well, back up. I voted for McCain in the Republican primary. I'm a registered Republican. And everybody said, oh, you're a liberal. You got to be a liberal. You're in the media. You're from Massachusetts. You know, well, scratch that stereotype. But anyway, so I'm a registered Republican. I have been for years. But anyway, so I voted for McCain because I thought he was the best of the Republican candidates. And I fully thought, okay, political know-it-all that I am, that it'll be McCain versus Hillary Clinton. Well, of course, that didn't happen, and then it was Obama. And Obama just grew on me. I was just, to me, McCain just kept talking about old, blah, blah, blah. And I figured, let's take a chance because things weren't working the way they were. Let's try the new guy. And, you know, things haven't worked out particularly well since he's been there, but I think I do see a lot of people with hope and enthusiasm that didn't have hope and enthusiasm before. I see a lot of other people who are really miserable because they don't like the man at all. It's the depth of hatred is really astounding. Of course, I mean, a lot of Democrats had that same feeling towards Bush. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think he is going to get some kind of health plan. And I think if you want to get a health plan, you got to get your foot in the door, just as Lyndon Johnson did with the Civil Rights Act, and he added other stuff. And so I think something will happen. He is involved in so much stuff. I've worked with guys who would pick 3 or 4 topics. They say, these are 3 or 4 things we got to get done. Somebody else take care of the rest. It seems like Obama, he wants to do it all. I mean, he's gone to Copenhagen to get the Olympics in 2016. Chicago, you know, okay, well, gosh, you got the kind of time on your hands there, Barack, baby. But so that makes me wonder. But I think he's brought a lot of energy. It's always funny to go someplace else because you live here, and I started to wonder, you to see the forest for the trees, and there's such a depth of hatred for him here and among so many people. And then, you know, like I was in Boston, which is where I'm from, visiting my mother and my brothers, and I was like, oh, they're throwing petals on the streets, you know, oh, Barack, Barack, and all this and whatever. And, you know, they have a much more complicated view of Teddy Kennedy than the people here. So many people here just hate Kennedy. I mean, that was it. So it is fun. One of the things I try to do is I really try to hang out with lots of different people. Like for many years, I had breakfast every Tuesday morning with this really cantankerous right-wing guy. And on Wednesday morning, I have breakfast with this gung-ho liberal lefty guy. And they're both friends of mine. You know, they have different views on politics. But I mean, I think it's really important that if you're going to be a journalist or report about your community, you got to talk to people from all walks of life, and that's, I think, what a journalist is. And then you get a guy like a Limbaugh or Hannity, whatever. They're so good because they just focus on one form. Jon Stewart on the left. I mean, I'm not picking on the conservatives at all, but they just hang around with that one crowd. It's like, if you just hang out with people who look like you and think like you, well, then you think the whole world is that way.
What did you think of Sarah Palin?
Man, I was impressed at first. I thought when she came out there and told that joke about hockey moms, you know, we'd been through the whole thing. My kids played traveling soccer, you know, been soccer mom, soccer dad, and all that stuff. So hockey. So I was really impressed with her at first, but then she just didn't have any connection to reality in a lot of stuff. And I was like, okay, go back and get some serious training and things like that. But then she really did go. To me, she just got so off the trail there with all kinds of animosity and negative stuff. And at the same time, I was stunned by how the media, the national media, seemed to take personal delight in trashing her. I mean, they really did. Yeah. I mean, she was not a particularly likable person. I think I saw the same thing with Dan Quayle. Dan Quayle was a lightweight kind of guy, but when you know, he spelled potato wrong, then the media had an opportunity to bash him. And it was the same thing with Palin. I think she would have fizzled out on her own, frankly. But I was disappointed at. Now, they said that she gave a very good speech over in, was it China this past week?
I believe so.
Yeah, that was very intelligent and informed. Unfortunately, it was a year too late. But anyway, she did give a good speech. So we'll see. I think she needs a few years. You know, they talk about her in 2012. I think it's going to take more than that to get some kind of background and whatever. But give her a try. I mean, we've seen worse out there. But I was really disappointed in it. I was thinking, okay, I got daughters. I mean, I want women to do well. I mean, I really do look around and say, hey, is there a woman out there? And so I thought, okay, well, she's going to add some life to this ticket. It won't be just old John McCain. And boy, she just took it down the drain, because the thing about McCain to me was he was an honorable man. He really was. And she just went crazy, you know, seeing Russia from her porch and all that stuff, man. I was like, okay, stretch the truth a little, but not that much.
Yeah, right. And you're right. The media did just go after her.
Oh, yeah, they did. They took great delight, and they're still bashing her. It was funny. I was looking at some David Letterman the other day, and he's still beating up on her. I mean, it's over. Let her go, man. You know, statute of limitations expired. You know, find somebody else to pick on.
That's right. Mark, it has been a real pleasure visiting
thanks for
with
having
you.
me. I appreciate it.
You bet. We'll have to have you back
like
again
that.
as you continue to observe what's going on in the
Well, I
political
appreciate
world.
it, Jeff. Thanks a lot.
And your columns 4 times a week in the Pensacola News Journal, and then your blogging?
Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and the blogs every day.
All right. Mark OBrien, Pensacola News Journal columnist.
Hey, thanks
it was
a
a real
lot,
pleasure.
man.
We
Thanks a lot.
appreciate you appreciate you spending some time with us here.
Glad to.
And we certainly appreciate you watching this edition of Conversations. I'm Jeff Weeks. Take very good care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.